The phone vibrates on the table. A notification illuminates the dark screen. Claire reaches out with a trembling hand and reads the words that destroy 20 years of marriage in seconds. "My love, I can't wait to feel you in my arms again." But this message wasn't for her. Have you ever discovered that the person you trust most is living a double life? Have you ever felt the ground disappear from under your feet when you realize that everything you believed in was a lie? This is the story of Claire Morrison, a woman who thought she knew the man she married. A mother of 3 who discovered that the love of her life was planning to abandon her before he even returned home. An entrepreneur who built an empire while her personal world was silently falling apart. But Claire didn't know that her true strength had yet to be tested. That the coming years would reveal a woman capable of turning pain into purpose, betrayal into wisdom, and silence into power. You are about to read a story about the limits of human endurance, about how far a mother is willing to go to protect her children, and about how sometimes we have to lose everything to discover who we really are. Claire Morrison woke up at 5:30 in the morning, religiously. Not for pleasure, but out of necessity. It was the only time of day the house was completely silent, when she could take a deep breath and mentally prepare for the next 16 hours of nonstop responsibilities. At 35, Claire had become a version of herself she no longer recognized. Her brown hair, once always perfect, was now held back in a practical bun. Her hands, which were once soft and well-kept, now carried small cuts and burns from her company's industrial kitchen. Her green eyes, which Oliver used to say shone like emeralds, now reflected a deep exhaustion that no amount of coffee could hide. The 2-story house in Sterling Heights, Michigan, had been the couple's dream when they bought it 12 years ago. With its 4 bedrooms, spacious yard, and gourmet kitchen, it seemed perfect for the family they planned to build. Now, with toys scattered across the living room, drawings taped to the fridge, and the constant noise of 3 children, the house was both a loving home and a daily battleground. Liam, the 4-year-old youngest, had been diagnosed with severe autism at 2.5. For Claire, the diagnosis didn't change the love she felt for her son, but it completely transformed her routine. Liam needed structure, predictability, and constant attention. His sensory meltdowns could be triggered by anything: a change in food texture, an unexpected noise, or simply the fact that his favorite cartoon was over. Olivia, 7, was the family's natural mediator. With her blonde curls and blue eyes inherited from her father, she had developed an impressive emotional sensitivity for her age. Claire often found her comforting Liam during a meltdown or trying to distract Ava when her older sister got frustrated with the constant interruptions Liam's autism caused to her plans. Ava, at 12, was navigating the turbulent waters of pre-adolescence without the paternal presence she so longed for. Intelligent and determined like her mother, she had taken on responsibilities far beyond her age, helping with Liam and being a role model for Olivia. But Claire saw a forced maturity in her oldest daughter's eyes that broke her heart. The company Nourish Kids was born in Claire's kitchen 3 years ago, when she realized how difficult it was to find healthy food options that Liam would accept. She started by preparing nutritious meals adapted for children with selective eating, sharing recipes in online mom groups. The demand grew organically, and what was a hobby turned into a prosperous business. Now, the company operated out of a 10,000-square-foot warehouse, employed 15 people, and filled orders from all over the American Midwest. Claire had become a leading expert in specialized pediatric nutrition, a sought-after speaker, and a mentor for other entrepreneurial mothers. But each professional achievement carried the weight of Oliver's absence. Oliver Morrison had been a soldier in the U.S. Army for 18 years. At 38, he had achieved the rank of Master Sergeant and was respected for his leadership and dedication. When they got married, Claire admired his discipline, his unwavering loyalty to military values, and his ability to protect. Oliver was the kind of man who fixed anything that broke in the house, who carried Ava in his arms even when she was too big, who woke up in the middle of the night to soothe childhood nightmares. But the Army had changed Oliver in recent years. The missions became longer, more dangerous, more secret. He returned home more withdrawn, more irritable, less present even when he was physically there. The last mission in Afghanistan had already lasted 2 years, the longest separation the family had ever faced. During these 2 years, Claire had become a single mother, a successful entrepreneur, and the primary caregiver for a child with special needs. She coordinated therapies for Liam, attended school meetings for Ava and Olivia, managed a growing company, kept the house running, and still found time for video calls with Oliver whenever the time zone allowed. The calls with Oliver had become increasingly sparse and superficial. He seemed distant, responding to news about the children with vague comments, showing little interest in Liam's developmental milestones or the girls' school achievements. Claire attributed this disconnect to the stress of the mission, the time difference, and the secret nature of his military work. In the quiet kitchen that Tuesday morning, Claire prepared coffee while mentally organizing the day. A meeting with suppliers at 9, Liam's occupational therapy at noon, Olivia's school presentation at 3 in the afternoon, and then a night of work organizing the following week's orders. It was an exhausting routine, but one she had perfected over 2 years of practice. The sun was beginning to appear on the horizon when she heard the first noises from upstairs. Liam always woke up first, and she could identify his mood by the sound of his footsteps. That morning, the steps were rhythmic and light, a good sign. Maybe it would be a calm day. But Claire didn't know that in a few hours her life would change forever. That a simple phone notification would reveal a betrayal so deep that it would call into question everything she believed about love, family, and loyalty. The Nourish Kids office was on the second floor of the industrial warehouse, with large windows that allowed Claire to supervise production while handling the administrative side. It was a functional and welcoming space, with photos of the kids on the desk, plants that Ava had chosen to make the room happier, and a small area with toys for when Liam needed to be there after school. On that Tuesday, Claire was reviewing special orders, customized meals for children with multiple allergies and severe dietary restrictions. It was a meticulous job that required complete concentration, but one she loved because she knew the direct impact it had on the lives of other families facing similar challenges to her own. It was 2:15 in the afternoon when her phone vibrated on the desk. Claire glanced distractedly at the screen, expecting to see a message from Ava letting her know she got home from school safely, or maybe from her assistant confirming a delivery. Instead, she saw Oliver's name and felt that familiar pang of anxiety mixed with hope she always felt when he got in touch. The message was there, complete on the lock screen. "My love, I can't wait to feel you in my arms again. This mission is almost over, and when I get back, we'll start our life together. Have you talked to your husband about the divorce yet? I'll handle things my way here." Claire will never suspect a thing. She's too busy with the kids and that little business of hers to pay attention to what really matters. "I love you more than anything, my goddess. Soon we'll be free to live our love without hiding." Claire read the message once, then again, and once more. The words danced on the screen, refusing to make sense. Her brain simply couldn't process what it was seeing. My love. He was calling another woman my love. Our life together. He was planning a life with someone else. Claire will never suspect. He had turned her dedication to her family into a cruel joke. That little business of hers. 3 years of hard work, sleepless nights, building something from scratch while single-handedly caring for 3 children, reduced to that little business of hers. Claire's hands began to tremble. The phone slipped through her fingers and fell to the floor with a dry thud. She looked at the device as if it were an alien object, as if she couldn't believe something so small could contain information capable of destroying her entire life. The room began to spin. Claire braced her hands on the desk, trying to stay steady, but her legs felt like jelly. Her breath became short, shallow. She recognized the symptoms of a panic attack, but she had never experienced one so intense. "No," she whispered to the empty office. "No, no, no." But the words kept echoing in her head. Claire will never suspect a thing. The coldness of that phrase was what hurt the most. It wasn't just betrayal, it was contempt. Oliver wasn't just cheating on her, he was mocking her. Claire picked up the phone from the floor with trembling hands and reread the message, looking for any alternative explanation. Maybe it was a mistake, an old message, a misunderstanding. But there was no denying it. It was addressed to a contact saved as my life, who was definitely not her. She ran to the office's attached bathroom and vomited violently. Her body was physically rejecting that reality. Between one wave of nausea and the next, she sobbed uncontrollably, a primitive cry that came from a deep place in her soul she didn't know existed. When she finally managed to calm down enough to look at herself in the mirror, she didn't recognize the woman she saw there. Her eyes were swollen and red, her face pale as a sheet, her lips trembling uncontrollably. She looked like she had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. How did I not see it? She asked her reflection. How could I be so stupid? But then the pieces started to fit together. The increasingly rare calls, the disinterest in the kids' milestones, the coldness when she talked about the company, the constant excuses for not video calling. Everything made sense now. Claire went back to her desk and, with shaky fingers, opened the conversation history with Oliver. Rereading their messages from the last few months with this new perspective, she could clearly see the disinterest, the automated responses, the lack of emotional warmth that she had attributed to the stress of the mission. She had sent photos of Liam taking his first steps in therapy. Oliver replied, "Cool." She had told him about the first award Ava won at the science fair. Oliver replied, "Congrats to her." She had shared Olivia's joy at losing her first tooth. Oliver replied, "Okay." Each lukewarm response now revealed its true nature. Oliver wasn't emotionally present because he was investing his emotional energy in someone else. While Claire fought alone to keep the family together, he was building a new family far away from her. The office door opened and Sarah, her lead assistant, walked in with a pile of orders for approval. A woman in her early 40s and the mother of autistic twins, Sarah had become more than an employee. She was a confidant and a friend. "Claire? My God, what happened?" Sarah dropped the papers and ran to her. Claire tried to speak, but only sobs came out. Sarah hugged her without asking questions, allowing her to cry until she had no more tears. Oliver. Claire finally managed to articulate between sobs. "He has another woman. He's planning to leave me. He thinks I don't know anything." Sarah was silent for a moment, processing the information. "Are you sure?" she asked gently. Claire showed her the phone. Sarah read the message, and her face twisted in anger. "That bastard," she muttered. "After everything you've done for him, for this family." "He thinks I'm stupid," Claire whispered. "That I'm too busy to notice. As if taking care of our children and building our financial stability were some foolish distraction." "Claire, listen to me." Sarah held her face in her hands. "You're not stupid. You're a woman who trusted the man she loved. That's not stupidity, that's love. And he's the one who abused that trust." But Claire barely heard her. Her mind was racing, processing the implications of this discovery. How would she tell the kids? How would she explain that their father was planning to abandon them? And the company? Could she keep everything running on her own if Oliver filed for divorce and fought for half of everything? "Sarah, I need to go home," Claire said, trying to compose herself. "I need to pick up the kids and think." "Of course. I'll take care of everything here." "Go, Claire. And remember, you're stronger than you think." On the drive home, Claire made a decision that would change the course of the next few months of her life. She would not confront Oliver immediately. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing she had discovered his secret. Instead, she would observe, gather information, and prepare for what was to come. But Claire didn't know that this decision to stay silent would become both her strength and her curse. That over the next 8 months, more messages would arrive by mistake, each one a deeper stab to her soul. And that when Oliver finally returned home, he wouldn't be the man she had married. He would be a cruel stranger determined to psychologically destroy her to justify his own betrayal. The first message was only the beginning. Over the next 8 months, Claire received 17 more messages intended for Oliver's mistress. Each one arrived like a ghost in the middle of the night, destroying any moment of peace she managed to find. The messages revealed intimate details of a relationship Oliver had been having for over a year. The woman's name was Captain Jessica Reynolds, a 32-year-old military intelligence officer, divorced, with no children. Through Oliver's drunken, mistyped messages, Claire learned every detail of this other life. The secret meetings on base, the promises of a future together, the detailed plans for how Oliver would get rid of his problematic wife and his complicated children. One message, sent early one Friday morning, was particularly brutal. "Jess, my angel, you can't imagine how liberating it is to be with a woman who truly understands me. Back home, it's just one problem after another. The autistic kid is always screaming. The oldest one looks at me with a judgmental face. The middle one cries about everything. And Claire is always stressed, always complaining about how tired she is. You are my salvation, my love. When we get back to the States, we'll move to Colorado like we planned. Away from all this mess." Claire read this message in the bathroom at home at 3 in the morning, after spending 6 hours calming Liam down during a severe sensory meltdown. She had just put her son to sleep when the phone vibrated. The casual cruelty with which Oliver referred to his own children made her vomit again. The autistic kid is always screaming. Liam wasn't just the autistic kid, he was their son, a brilliant and sensitive boy who needed understanding, not contempt. Oliver had missed Liam's first steps, his first words, his first drawings. He had missed 2 years of his own son's life and now reduced him to an inconvenience. Another message, which arrived on a Sunday afternoon while Claire was preparing a special lunch because Ava had won a math competition, destroyed any remaining hope she had that Oliver still loved his family. "My goddess, today Claire sent me pictures of Ava's presentation at school. She so badly wants me to show pride, to say that I miss them. But the truth is, I feel free being away from them. Free to be myself with you. When I think about going home, I feel claustrophobic. You are my liberation, Jess. With you, I can be the man I truly am, not the father and husband they want me to be." This message arrived exactly 3 minutes after Claire had sent a video of Ava reciting a poem she had written about how my daddy is my hero even when he's far away. The irony was so cruel that Claire had to lock herself in the closet to cry so the children wouldn't see her break down. The messages also revealed logistical details of Oliver's plans. He and Jessica had chosen a city in Colorado where they would start a new life. They had even looked at houses online. Oliver planned to request a transfer to a nearby base and initiate the divorce process as soon as he returned to the United States. He had consulted military lawyers about how to minimize child support, claiming that Claire had her own company and didn't need financial support. She always wanted to be independent anyway, one of the messages said. Now she can have all the independence in the world. Each message was a cruel lesson in how little she meant to the man she had shared nearly 2 decades of her life with. Oliver spoke about Claire as if she were a burden he had carried for too long, not the woman who had given up her own dreams to support his military career, who had created a loving home for their children, who had built a prosperous company while he was away. During these 8 months, Claire became a consummate actress. In the morning, she would wake up, check for new messages, there always were, cry in the bathroom for a timed 15 minutes, wash her face, and then face the day as if nothing had changed. She maintained the video calls with Oliver, smiled when he asked about the family, and shared news about the children as if they were still a united couple. The company flourished during this period, perhaps because Claire channeled all her pain and anger into her work. She developed new product lines, expanded into 3 new states, and was invited to speak at national conferences on pediatric nutrition and female entrepreneurship. Externally, she was a successful woman at the peak of her career. Internally, she was slowly dying. The children noticed subtle changes. Ava, always perceptive, asked several times if her mom was okay. "You look sad even when you're smiling, Mom," she said once. Claire hugged her daughter and lied, saying she was just tired from work. Olivia started having nightmares and went back to climbing into Claire's bed during the night. "Mom, you're not going to leave too, are you?" she asked one night. The question broke Claire's heart, who realized that even without knowing the details, the children felt the emotional instability that permeated the house. Liam, in his autistic sensitivity, absorbed Claire's emotional stress, and his meltdowns intensified. He started having more frequent repetitive movements, and his selective eating worsened. Claire felt guilty, knowing that her emotional state was affecting her son, but she couldn't completely hide the inner storm. The worst moment came on a December night, when Claire received a message Oliver had sent to Jessica after a family video call. "I just talked to them." Claire was forcing a smile. The kids looked tired. "Honestly, Jess, I don't feel anything for them anymore. It's like looking at strangers. Is this how it happens? Does love just die, and you don't even feel guilty? Because I should feel bad for abandoning them, but all I feel is relief. Relief because soon I'll be free to live my real life with you." That night, Claire didn't sleep. She sat on the bed, looking at the wedding photos on the wall, trying to understand how the man who had sworn to love her forever could talk about abandoning his family with relief. She recalled every significant moment of their relationship, the first date, the marriage proposal, the birth of each child, and wondered if Oliver had been faking his love all these years, or if the love had truly died without even leaving guilt behind. It was that night that Claire made a second crucial decision. When Oliver came home, she would not make things easy for him. If he wanted to get rid of his family, he would have to face the consequences of his choices. She would not be the understanding wife who would accept a friendly divorce. She would fight not to save a dead marriage, but to protect her children and ensure Oliver paid for every tear he had caused. But Claire still didn't know how cruel Oliver could be when confronted. She didn't imagine that he would come home with a calculated strategy to destroy her self-esteem, make her doubt her own sanity, and create a scenario where she looked like the villain of the story. The woman who had discovered the betrayal in silence was about to face something even worse: a husband determined to break her spirit before officially breaking his marital vows. The 6th week after Oliver's return began with a false calm. He seemed to pull back on his constant criticisms, even being affectionate with the children. Claire began to wonder if she had imagined the intensity of his psychological attacks, if maybe he was truly trying to readjust to family life. This hope lasted until Thursday night. Liam had a particularly difficult day at school. Changes in routine always affected him severely, and the school had changed a substitute teacher without warning. He came home in a state of total meltdown. He was crying uncontrollably, banging his head against the wall, and rejecting any attempt at physical contact. Claire immediately implemented the protocol she and Liam's therapist had developed. She dimmed all the lights in the house, eliminated unnecessary noises, prepared Liam's weighted blanket, and began to speak to him in low, calming tones. It was a process that could take hours, but it gradually helped Liam emotionally regulate himself. Oliver came home in the middle of this meltdown and immediately showed impatience. "Still?" he asked, seeing Liam on the living room floor, rocking back and forth while Claire tried to calm him. "It was a difficult day at school," Claire explained in a low voice. "He should calm down in an hour or two." "An hour or two?" Oliver's voice rose, making Liam flinch even more. "Claire, this is ridiculous. He's 4 years old. He can't command the whole house with these tantrums. Please, lower your voice. Loud noise makes everything worse. I'm not going to whisper in my own house because a child is throwing a fit. It's not a fit," Claire yelled, losing her temper for the first time in weeks. "It's a sensory meltdown. He can't control it. And you screaming is only making it worse." Oliver stopped talking, but Claire could see the anger growing in his eyes. Liam, stimulated by the tension between his parents, increased his screams and started hitting himself more forcefully. Ava and Olivia came down the stairs, frightened by the noise. Ava immediately knelt down near Liam and started to quietly sing a song she knew would calm him. Olivia hugged Claire's legs, looking for comfort. "Look at what you've done," Oliver said coldly. "Look at how you've changed these children. The oldest one taking on adult responsibilities, the middle one scared, and the boy." He paused and shook his head with disdain. "How have I changed them?" Claire asked, incredulously. "Ava shouldn't have to calm her brother. That's a mother's job. But you're so lost, so out of control, that a 12-year-old is doing your job." Claire looked at Ava, who continued singing to Liam with impressive maturity for her age. Her heart broke realizing that Oliver was right about one thing. Ava had taken on too many responsibilities. But not because Claire was incompetent, because she had been doing the job of two parents alone for years. "Ava learned to help because I needed to teach her to be part of a family team," Claire said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Because when you're not here, we all have to work together. When I'm not here, I came back 6 weeks ago, Claire. And in 6 weeks, nothing has improved. In fact, it's worse. Liam is having more meltdowns. Ava is more stressed. Olivia is more tearful. Maybe the problem isn't my absence. Maybe it's your presence." The words fell into the silent room like bombs. Ava stopped singing and looked at her father in shock. Olivia began to cry quietly. Liam, feeling the emotional tension increase, screamed even louder. "Your presence," he had said, as if Claire, who had sacrificed everything for this family, was a problem to be solved. "Oliver," Claire started, but he cut her off. "No, Claire. Someone needs to tell the truth here. You're failing as a mother. You're failing as a wife. And you're so busy playing successful businesswoman that you can't see your own family is falling apart." "Our family," Claire screamed. "This is our family. And it's only been falling apart since you came home." That's when Oliver smiled. A cold, calculated, cruel smile. "Then maybe you'd prefer me to leave again." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Liam stopped crying for a moment, as if he sensed the gravity of what had been said. Claire looked at the 3 children, Ava with tears in her eyes, Olivia sobbing quietly. Liam huddled on the floor and saw what Oliver had done. He had created a situation where any answer she gave would be used against her. If she said yes, he would tell the kids their mother had kicked him out. If she said no, he would continue his campaign of psychological destruction. But then Claire remembered the messages. The promises to abandon the family. The detailed plans to start a new life in Colorado. The coldness with which he had spoken about feeling free away from them. And she realized this wasn't a threat, it was an opportunity. Oliver was offering exactly what he had already planned to do, leave their lives. The only difference was that now he wanted it to look like her choice. Claire took a deep breath and made the bravest decision of her life. Yes, she said calmly. I'd prefer you to leave. The shock on Oliver's face was visible. He clearly expected her to beg, to apologize, to try to save him from his own threat. Claire, he started, but she cut him off. You heard me. I'd prefer you to leave. Today. Now. Mommy, no. Ava screamed, running to stand between her parents. Daddy, you can't leave again. Claire knelt down and held her daughter's face in her hands. Ava, sweetie, sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions. Daddy will be fine, and we'll be fine too. But I don't want Daddy to leave. Olivia cried. I know, my love. I know. Oliver stood still, clearly not knowing how to react. His strategy had failed. Instead of breaking Claire, he had given her exactly what she needed. A reason to end the marriage that didn't reveal she knew about the betrayal. Claire, you're being irrational. He tried one last time. You're making an emotional decision that's going to hurt the kids. No, Oliver. I'm making the most rational decision of my life. These children deserve to live in a house where they are loved and valued. And clearly you can't do that. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not making this decision sooner. Oliver looked around the room, at the crying children, at Claire standing with a determination he had never seen before, and realized he had lost control of the situation. Fine, he said finally. But don't come looking for me when you realize you can't handle everything on your own. And don't expect me to make things easy for you in the divorce. I wasn't expecting any ease from you anyway, Claire replied with a calmness that surprised even herself. Oliver went upstairs to pack his bags. Claire hugged the 3 children, allowing them to cry out their confusion and fear, promising that everything would be okay, that she would take care of them, that they were loved and safe. An hour later, Oliver came downstairs with 2 bags. He quickly kissed each child, mumbled something about see you soon, and walked out the front door without looking back. Claire locked the door behind him and leaned against it, trembling. She had done it. She had finally sent away the man who had planned to destroy her family. But she didn't know that Oliver hadn't given up, that in the following months he would attempt one last, cruel revenge, and that Claire would have to find a strength she didn't even know she possessed to protect everything she had fought for. The war was only just beginning. 3 days after Oliver left the house, Claire was sitting at her office desk, trying to focus on the week's orders, when her phone vibrated with a message from him. I hope you're happy with your decision, but don't think this is over. You forced me out, but these are my children too, and I will fight for them. Claire read the message 3 times. There was no regret in it, no attempt at reconciliation, no apology for the months of psychological abuse. Just a veiled threat that the battle was far from over. She deleted the message without replying and went back to work. But something had changed in her during those 6 hellish weeks. The woman who had discovered the infidelity in silence, who had endured months of psychological manipulation, who had been reduced to doubting her own sanity, that woman was dead. In her place, someone stronger, more determined, more dangerous had been born. Someone who had learned that love alone doesn't sustain a marriage, that loyalty must be reciprocal, and that sometimes the only way to protect a family is to break the structures that are poisoning it. Claire didn't know yet that in the coming years she would build an empire, change the lives of thousands of families, find true love, and face the most brutal legal battle of her life. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never again allow anyone to make her question her own worth. The first part of Claire's journey had ended with a courageous choice. The second part would begin with a complete transformation. 3 months after Oliver's departure, Claire woke up one Saturday morning and realized she had slept for 8 consecutive hours for the first time in years. She hadn't been woken by nightmares about betrayed messages, hadn't spent hours in bed brooding over cruel conversations, hadn't felt that chest depression that had accompanied her since discovering the betrayal. The house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. It was no longer the tense silence of a family walking on eggshells, trying to avoid emotional outbursts. It was a peaceful silence, the silence of a home where people could breathe freely. Claire went downstairs to the kitchen and found Ava making pancakes for her siblings. The girl, now 13, had taken on even more responsibilities after her father left, but in a different way, not out of desperate necessity, but out of love and family solidarity. "Good morning, Mom," Ava said with a smile Claire hadn't seen in months. "I thought I'd make a special breakfast. It's Saturday." "What a great idea, sweetheart." Claire hugged her daughter from behind as she stirred the batter. "Are you happy?" "I am," Ava replied without hesitation. "The house feels lighter." You know, Claire knew exactly what she meant. It was as if a toxic fog had been removed from their home, allowing everyone to breathe fresh air again. Olivia came downstairs carrying Liam, something she had learned to do to soothe him when he woke up disoriented. The boy, now 5, had gone through a difficult phase after his father's departure, but his meltdowns had significantly decreased in recent weeks. "Mom, Liam wants star-shaped pancakes," Olivia announced. "Of course he does," Claire laughed, kissing her youngest son's head. "We'll make stars then." As they prepared breakfast together, Claire watched her children and felt something she had lost during the months of psychological manipulation: pride in herself. She had protected these 3 children. She had made the hardest decision of her life, and it had worked out. But Claire didn't know that making that decision had only been the first step in a much longer and more transformative journey. That Monday, she arrived at the company Nourish Kids with a different energy. Sarah, her assistant, noticed immediately. "You're different," Sarah observed as they reviewed the week's orders. "Different how?" "More present. More focused. Like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders." Claire smiled. "I think it has." It was that morning that Claire had the idea that would change not only her life, but the lives of thousands of families. While preparing a special meal for an autistic child with severe selective eating, she thought of Liam and all the other children like him. "Sarah," she said suddenly, "what if we created a complete line specifically for autistic children with selective eating?" "You mean in addition to the personalized products we already make?" "No, something bigger. A standardized but scientifically developed line, with specific textures, flavors that meet sensory needs, packaging that doesn't cause anxiety, something any family can buy without needing special requests." Sarah stopped writing and looked at Claire with growing admiration. "That would be revolutionary. There's nothing like that on the market." "Exactly. And we could be the first." In the following months, Claire dove into the project with a passion that surprised even herself. She consulted nutritionists specializing in autism, occupational therapists, child psychologists, and, most importantly, other mothers of autistic children. What started as product research turned into something much bigger: a support network among families facing similar challenges. Claire created an online group that quickly grew from 10 mothers to hundreds, then thousands. "You can't imagine how liberating it is to talk to people who understand," wrote one mother from Texas. "My son has only eaten 3 things for 2 years, and everyone tells me it's my fault for not setting limits. Here, I don't have to explain myself." Claire read these messages and felt a deep connection to something greater than her own pain. She wasn't just a woman who had been betrayed and manipulated. She was a mother who understood unique challenges, an entrepreneur who could create solutions, a leader who could give a voice to a silenced community. 18 months after Oliver's departure, Claire was on the main stage of the largest pediatric nutrition conference in the United States, presenting her sensory-safe foods, lined to an audience of 1,000 health professionals and parents. "When my son Liam was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, she began, her voice echoing in the silent auditorium, "I discovered that one of the biggest battles we would face would be at mealtimes." Claire told her story without mentioning Oliver or the betrayal. That pain she kept to herself. Instead, she spoke about the isolation that families of autistic children face, the lack of societal understanding, and the desperate need for products that met the specific sensory needs of these children. "Selective eating is not a tantrum," she said. and hundreds of parents in the audience nodded in agreement. It is a neurological response to stimuli that the autistic brain processes differently. And when we understand that, we can create solutions. The presentation was a resounding success. 3 major supermarket chains approached her to distribute sensory-safe foods products nationally. 2 investors offered capital for expansion. And most importantly, dozens of families approached her to share stories of how the products had transformed their mealtime routines. "You changed our lives," said a mother from Colorado, with tears in her eyes. "My daughter ate vegetables for the first time in 3 years thanks to your line of textured purees." Claire hugged the woman, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. She wasn't just selling food. She was offering hope, understanding, and solutions to desperate families. The company grew exponentially. In 2 years, Claire had expanded from 15 to 120 employees. Nourish Kids became a nationally recognized name, not just for its products, but for the cause it represented. Claire was invited to TV shows, specialized magazines, and governmental conferences. The U.S. Department of Agriculture consulted her to develop dietary guidelines for children with special needs. 3 universities offered partnerships for research on nutrition and autism. "You become more than an entrepreneur," said Dr. Rebecca Martinez, one of the country's leading autism researchers, during a meeting. "You become a voice for a community that desperately needed to be heard." But Claire's professional success came with personal sacrifices. She worked 16 hours a day, traveled constantly for conferences and meetings, and felt she was missing precious moments with her own children. One night, arriving home after a 3-day trip to Seattle, she found Liam asleep on the living room sofa, hugging a picture of her. "He asked where you were about 20 times today," Ava explained. "I told him you were helping other kids like him, and he said he wanted you to help him too." Claire's heart broke. In her mission to help thousands of families, she was neglecting her own. "Ava, honey, I need to find a better balance." "Mom, we understand what you're doing is important, but you're important to us too." That night, Claire made another life-changing decision. She would hire a trusted executive team to take over the daily operations of the company, allowing her to be more strategic and less operational, more present for her children and less absent out of necessity. 3.5 years after the divorce, Claire was at a conference on educational inclusion in Denver when she met John Peterson. She was in the coffee line, exhausted after an intense morning of lectures, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Excuse me, but aren't you Claire Morrison from Nourish Kids?" Claire turned and saw a tall man, with dark hair slightly graying at the temples, kind brown eyes, and a warm smile. He wore a simple sweater and jeans, nothing flashy, but there was something in his presence that radiated calm and authenticity. "That's me, yes," Claire replied, automatically assuming her professional posture. "John Peterson," he extended his hand. "I'm a father to 2 autistic boys, Jake, 8, and Sam, 6. Your products literally saved our family mealtimes." There was something in the way he spoke, no exaggeration, no drama, just sincere gratitude, that touched Claire in an unexpected way. "I'm so glad to hear that," she said. "How are they adapting?" "Jake now eats 5 different things, which is a miracle for us," John laughed. "And Sam discovered he likes the texture of your sensory cookies. Before that, he only ate French fries." They ended up having coffee together, and Claire discovered that John was a special education teacher, divorced 2 years ago, and had a perspective on autism that resonated deeply with her own experiences. "The hardest part isn't the challenges of autism itself," John said, stirring his coffee. "It's the lack of understanding from other people. The constant judgment about your parenting, as if you're not trying hard enough." "Exactly," Claire exclaimed, feeling an instant connection. "People think selective eating is a lack of discipline, that sensory meltdowns are tantrums, that stimming is hyperactivity." "And you become your own child's full-time lawyer," John completed. "Explaining, educating, defending, always." They talked for 2 hours, completely missing the afternoon lectures. Claire couldn't remember the last time she'd had such a fluid and understanding conversation with someone who truly grasped her reality. "Can I ask a personal question?" John said as they finally prepared to return to the conference activities. Of course. Are you here alone? I mean, did your husband not come? Claire hesitated for a moment. I've been divorced for almost 4 years. How about you? 2 years. My ex-wife. She couldn't handle the boys' diagnoses. She thought it would be easier to start a new life without the complications. Claire felt a pang of recognition. Although the circumstances were different, both had faced abandonment by partners who should have stood by them during the most difficult times. It must be hard raising 2 autistic boys by yourself. It is, John admitted. But it's also rewarding in a way I never imagined. They've taught me so much about unconditional love, about finding joy in small victories, about the importance of accepting people exactly as they are. When the conference ended that evening, John asked if Claire would like to have dinner together. Just as 2 single parents who understand the unique challenges we face, he quickly added. No pressure. Claire accepted, and over dinner, she discovered even more things in common with John. He had fully dedicated himself to his children after the divorce, just like her. He had chosen his career in special education because of his personal experiences, just as she had molded her company around Liam's needs. You are an inspiration, John said as they shared a dessert. What you've built isn't just a company, it's a movement. You've given a voice and solutions to thousands of families. Sometimes I feel like it's still not enough, Claire confessed. There's still so much prejudice, so little resources, so many families struggling alone. But you started something. You planted seeds that are growing. That matters more than you know. When they said goodbye that night, John asked if he could call her. I'd love to continue our conversation when we get back to our normal routines, he said. If you'd like, of course. Claire said yes, and for the first time in 4 years, she felt butterflies in her stomach for positive reasons. The relationship between Claire and John developed slowly, built on a solid foundation of mutual understanding and respect. They talked on the phone a few times a week, sharing the challenges and triumphs of single parenthood, exchanging strategies for dealing with sensory meltdowns, and celebrating their children's small progress. After 2 months of phone conversations, John flew from Denver to Michigan for a weekend. Claire was nervous. It was the first time she had brought a man to meet her children since the divorce. Kids, she said at Saturday breakfast, a friend of mine is coming to visit us today. He also has autistic children, and you might have things in common. Ava, now 16, raised an eyebrow with typical teenage skepticism. What kind of friend, Mom? A special friend, Claire admitted, blushing slightly. Liam, now 8 and much more communicative thanks to years of therapy, asked, is he going to live here? Like Dad used to. No, sweetie. He's just visiting. You can meet him and decide if you like him. Olivia, at 12, looked intrigued. Is he nice? I think so. But you'll have to tell me. When John arrived that afternoon, he brought a carefully chosen gift for each child. For Liam, a textured puzzle that helped with sensory stimulation. For Olivia, a book about a girl who rescues an injured horse. For Ava, a book about young scientists who changed the world. How did you know? Ava asked, flipping through the book with genuine interest. Your mom told me you want to study biomedicine, John replied, and that you like stories about people who overcame obstacles to make a difference in the world. Claire watched the interaction with a warm heart. John had truly listened when she talked about her children, had cared enough to choose meaningful gifts. The weekend passed quickly. John helped Liam through a small sensory meltdown, demonstrating techniques he used with his own sons. He talked with Ava about universities and careers in medicine. He taught Olivia a card game his boys loved. Most importantly, he didn't try to take on a paternal role or compete with the children's memories of their father. He was simply himself, kind, thoughtful, respectful. On Sunday evening, as John prepared to leave, Liam surprised him with a hug. Can you come back? The boy asked. If your mom invites me, I'd love to come back, John replied, looking at Claire. Can he come back, Mom? Olivia asked. He can, Claire said, smiling. Ava, who had observed everything with her analytical teenage eye, waited until John had left to give her verdict. He's different from Dad, she said. Different how? Claire asked, worried. He actually listens when you talk. And when he looks at us, it looks like he's seeing who we really are, not who he thinks we should be. Claire hugged her daughter, impressed by her emotional maturity. In the following months, John visited Michigan once a month, and Claire occasionally took the children to Denver. All 5 children, Claire's 3 and John's 2, got along surprisingly well, united by similar experiences and mutual understanding of the challenges of autism. It feels like we're an extended family, Olivia observed after a particularly fun visit to the Denver Zoo, where all 5 children had taken turns helping Liam and Sam when they became sensory overwhelmed. Claire and John were careful not to rush the relationship, especially considering their children's special needs. They wanted to ensure that any change would be stable and beneficial for all children involved. It was during their 2nd year of dating that John finally said, "I love you" to Claire. They were walking on the beach in Malibu, a rare romantic getaway without the kids, when he stopped and held her hands. "Claire, I know we've both been through a lot. I know we have enormous responsibilities to our children. But I need you to know, I love you. I love your strength, your compassion, your dedication. I love how you've turned pain into purpose. And I love how our children have blossomed together." Claire felt tears in her eyes. They were tears of pure joy, something she had forgotten how to feel. "I love you too, John. You've shown me that it's possible to trust again, to love again, to build something beautiful even after everything falls apart." They kissed as the sun set over the ocean, and Claire thought about how life could surprise you. For years ago, she was broken, betrayed, questioning her own worth. Now, she was in love with a man who saw and loved her exactly as she was. But Claire didn't know that Oliver had found out about John, and that her newfound happiness would awaken the cruelest revenge her ex-husband could conceive. Claire and John had been dating for 2.5 years when the bomb exploded. They had just announced their engagement, a discreet, intimate event, celebrated with all 5 children at a family restaurant in Michigan. The photo of the small celebration was posted by Ava on Instagram, a sweet image of Claire and John cutting a simple cake, surrounded by the smiling children. Ava wrote in the caption, "My mom deserves all the love in the world. Officially welcome to the family, John." A week later, Claire received a call from her lawyer. "Claire, I need to see you urgently. Oliver has filed a petition for custody review." Claire felt the ground drop out from under her feet. In the 5 years since the divorce, Oliver had maintained minimal contact with the children, sporadic phone calls, birthday gifts sent through the mail, quick supervised visits a few times a year. "Based on what?" she asked, her voice trembling. "He alleges that you are putting romantic interests above the children's well-being, that you're planning to move to Colorado with this John Peterson, removing the children from their established community. And he's questioning the true reasons for the original divorce." "What does that mean?" "Claire, you need to come to my office." Now, at the lawyer's office, Claire discovered the full extent of Oliver's campaign against her. He had hired a private investigator to document her life over the past 2 years. He had photos of her trips with John, records of their phone conversations illegally obtained, but still damaging, and even testimonies from disgruntled company employees who were coerced into criticizing her leadership. Worse, Oliver was spreading a completely false narrative about the end of the marriage. "He's saying you emotionally cheated on him with John Peterson," the lawyer explained. "That you planned the relationship even before the divorce. That you used the children as an excuse to kick him out of the house when you actually wanted to be with another man." Claire was speechless. Oliver's audacity in completely inverting the reality was breathtaking. "He's also questioning your capacity as a mother," the lawyer continued, "alleging that you neglect the children because of the company, that you force Liam to be your corporate mascot for publicity purposes, that you expose the children to unnecessary stress with your media appearances. This is insane. Everything I've done was for their well-being." Claire and John had been dating for 2.5 years when the bomb exploded. They had just announced their engagement, a discreet, intimate event, celebrated with all 5 children at a family restaurant in Michigan. The photo of the small celebration was posted by Ava on Instagram, a sweet image of Claire and John cutting a simple cake, surrounded by the smiling children. Ava wrote in the caption, "My mom deserves all the love in the world. Officially welcome to the family, John." A week later, Claire received a call from her lawyer. "Claire, I need to see you urgently. Oliver has filed a petition for custody review." Claire felt the ground drop out from under her feet. In the 5 years since the divorce, Oliver had maintained minimal contact with the children, sporadic phone calls, birthday gifts sent through the mail, quick supervised visits a few times a year. "Based on what?" she asked, her voice trembling. "He alleges that you are putting romantic interests above the children's well-being, that you're planning to move to Colorado with this John Peterson, removing the children from their established community. And he's questioning. Well, he's questioning the true reasons for the original divorce." "What does that mean?" "Claire, you need to come to my office." Now, at the lawyer's office, Claire discovered the full extent of Oliver's campaign against her. He had hired a private investigator to document her life over the past 2 years. He had photos of her trips with John, records of their phone conversations illegally obtained, but still damaging, and even testimonies from disgruntled company employees who were coerced into criticizing her leadership. Worse, Oliver was spreading a completely false narrative about the end of the marriage. "He's saying you emotionally cheated on him with John Peterson," the lawyer explained. "That you planned the relationship even before the divorce. That you used the children as an excuse to kick him out of the house when you actually wanted to be with another man." Claire was speechless. Oliver's audacity in completely inverting the reality was breathtaking. "He's also questioning your capacity as a mother," the lawyer continued, "alleging that you neglect the children because of the company, that you force Liam to be your corporate mascot for publicity purposes, that you expose the children to unnecessary stress with your media appearances. This is insane. Everything I've done was for their well-being." "I know, Claire. But Oliver has resources now. He married Jessica Reynolds 2 years ago, and she's been promoted to major. They have money for expensive lawyers and sophisticated defamation campaigns." Claire felt a familiar wave of nausea. Oliver had married the woman he had betrayed the family with, and now they were united against her. "What does he really want?" she asked. "Primary custody of the children. And he's targeting the company too. He alleges that Nourish Kids was built during the marriage with family resources, so he's entitled to a significant percentage." Claire realized Oliver's true motivation. It wasn't love for the children, it was greed. He had discovered the company's value, now appraised at $80 million, and wanted his cut. The children were merely a tool to get to the money. "He can't do this," Claire whispered. "He can try. And with the right lawyers and the right narrative, he might succeed." That night, Claire told John about Oliver's petition. She expected him to be frightened, to reconsider their engagement in the face of such an ugly legal battle. Instead, John held her hands and said, "We'll fight it. Together. John, this could destroy your career, your reputation. Oliver will come after you too. Let him come. I won't abandon you and the children when you need me most. I'm not Oliver." Claire wept with relief and gratitude. For the first time in her life, she had a partner who would stand by her in the storms, not just on the sunny days. But the battle that lay ahead would test them all in ways they couldn't imagine. The courtroom was packed on the day of the custody hearing. Oliver had hired Margaret Williamson, one of Michigan's most aggressive divorce attorneys, known for destroying reputations to get results for her clients. Claire arrived with her lawyer, Thomas Chun, accompanied by John. She had spent weeks preparing, organizing documents, lining up witnesses, but she still felt like David facing Goliath. Oliver was unrecognizable. The man she had known 20 years ago had been replaced by someone in a $3,000 suit, perfectly styled hair, and a cold, calculating expression she had only seen in the final weeks before the divorce. Beside him was Jessica, now Jessica Morrison, an elegant blonde woman who looked at Claire with thinly veiled disdain. Oliver's defense strategy was brutal from the very first moment. "Your Honor," Margaret Williamson began, "we are here today because a dedicated father is fighting to protect his children from a mother who has placed her personal ambition and romantic desires above the family's well-being. Claire felt John squeeze her hand under the table. Claire Morrison is, no doubt, a successful businesswoman, the lawyer continued. But that success story came at the cost of 3 children who were turned into marketing tools, exposed to national media, and neglected while their mother built her empire. Oliver's presentation was a masterpiece of manipulation. He described his attempts to save the marriage when he returned from Afghanistan, painting Claire as a cold, distant wife who had rejected him in favor of her career. "I tried to reconnect with my family," Oliver said on the witness stand, with well-rehearsed tears in his eyes. But Claire had already made her decision. She wanted to be a CEO, not a wife. She wanted national fame, not family intimacy. He spoke about Liam's special needs being exploited for commercial purposes, and about how Ava was forced to take on parental responsibilities because Claire was always traveling. The most devastating accusation came when Margaret Williamson presented evidence that Claire had started her relationship with John before the divorce was finalized. "We have phone records showing that Ms. Morrison and Mr. Peterson were in contact for months before the divorce," she lied brazenly. "We have photos of them together in Denver before the official separation." Claire nearly stood up to protest. The photos were from 2 years after the divorce, and the phone records were completely fabricated. But her lawyer held her back, whispering, "We'll refute everything when it's our turn." The cruelest moment came when Oliver talked about the children. "Liam barely knows me because Claire systematically pushed me away," he said, his voice theatrically breaking. "Ava is being pressured to grow up too fast, caring for her siblings because her mother is always absent. And Olivia, my sweet Olivia, is confused about what a normal family is because she watched her mother swap husbands like they were accessories." Claire felt bile rise in her throat. Oliver's cruelty in twisting 2 years of loving care into calculated neglect was breathtaking. But then came Thomas Chen's turn. "Your Honor," he began calmly, "you have just heard an impressive performance of creative fiction. Now let's talk about facts." Thomas presented the real chronology of events. Oliver's 2-year absence, the betrayal messages Claire had mistakenly received, the campaign of psychological abuse when he returned. Ms. Morrison did not kick Oliver Morrison out of the house because of another man, Thomas explained. She kicked him out because he was psychologically destroying his family while secretly planning to abandon them. And then came the moment Claire had both feared and waited for 6 years. "Your Honor, I would like to present evidence number 47. Text messages sent by Oliver Morrison to his mistress, Jessica Reynolds, during his marriage to Claire Morrison." Thomas turned on a sound system and began playing audio of the messages Oliver had mistakenly sent to Claire's business phone, the number he had never deleted from his contacts, often confusing it with Jessica's number when he was drunk. The first message echoed through the courtroom. "Jess, my angel, you can't imagine how liberating it is to be with a woman who truly understands me. Here at home, it's nothing but problems. The autistic kid always screaming, the oldest one looking at me with a judgmental face, the middle one crying over everything, and Claire always stressed." Claire watched Oliver pale. He clearly didn't remember sending those messages to the wrong number. The second message was even worse. "When I think about going back home, I feel claustrophobic. You are my liberation, Jess. With you I can be the man I really am, not the father and husband they want me to be." The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Claire saw Oliver exchange desperate glances with his lawyer, who clearly hadn't known about the existence of this evidence. But the most devastating message was still to come. "Jess, my goddess, I found out that Claire's company is worth much more than I thought. She's making millions with this special needs food story. When I get custody of the kids, I'll be entitled to a significant chunk of everything. We can put the kids in a boarding school, which would be better for them anyway, considering Liam's problems, and keep the money. It's the least she owes me after all these years supporting this family." The judge stopped the playback. "Mr. Morrison, were those messages sent from your phone?" Oliver was visibly sweating. I don't recall sending." "Your Honor," Thomas Chun interrupted, "we have official phone records confirming that these messages were sent from Mr. Morrison's number to Ms. Morrison's business phone between 2 and 4 in the morning. times consistent with alcohol consumption on the military base. It's not what it looks like, Oliver tried to explain. I was under a lot of stress. Mr. Morrison, the judge said coldly, are you telling me that stress led you to plan on placing your own children in a boarding school to gain access to your ex-wife's financial resources? Oliver fell silent, realizing anything he said would only worsen his situation. Thomas Chin wasn't finished. Your Honor, I would like to call our next witness, Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, family therapist who counseled the Morrison family during and after the divorce. Dr. Rodriguez was clear and devastating in her testimony. I saw all 3 Morrison children for 2 years, she explained. Liam showed clear signs of significant improvement after the removal of the paternal figure from the home environment. His meltdowns decreased, his communication improved. He became more receptive to therapies. And the other children? Ava and Olivia showed palpable relief. Ava told me textually, it's like we can finally breathe at home now. Olivia stopped having nightmares and returned to sleeping in her own bed. And when Mr. Peterson entered their lives, the children blossomed even further. Liam started communicating more openly. Ava gained confidence in her own opinions. Olivia developed interest in activities she had abandoned. Mr. Peterson provided emotional stability and a positive male role model that was missing in their lives. Margaret Williamson tried to discredit Dr. Rodriguez, but the damage was done. A medical professional had confirmed that Oliver's absence had been beneficial to the children. The next witness was Ava. At 18, Ava had requested the right to testify about her own custody preferences. She ascended to the witness stand with the confident posture of a young woman who knew exactly what she wanted to say. Your Honor, Ava began, my father is lying about almost everything he said here today. Oliver squirmed uncomfortably in his seat. He didn't try to save our marriage. When he came back from Afghanistan, he made our house a toxic place where no one could relax. He constantly criticized my mom for everything, for working too much, for not working enough, for caring for Liam, for not caring for Liam the way he wanted. Ava, please, Oliver muttered, but the judge silenced him. He never understood that Liam has autism. He called my brother's meltdowns tantrums and said my mom was spoiling him. He made me feel like it was my fault for helping my family. Ava turned directly to Oliver. And about John Peterson, he saved us, Dad. He showed what a man should look like treating a family. With respect, with kindness, with patience. He never yelled at us, never made us feel like a burden, never used us to hurt our mom. Tears began to stream down Ava's face, but her voice remained firm. I love you, Dad. I always will. But I don't trust you. And I don't want you to have custody of us, because I know you'll use us to hurt my mom again. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Claire was weeping. John held her hand tightly. And even Margaret Williamson seemed shaken by Ava's raw and honest testimony. The judge called a recess to deliberate. When he returned, his decision was clear and definitive. After reviewing all the evidence presented, Judge Harrison began. It is clear that this custody petition is not motivated by the children's best interests, but by financial greed and personal revenge. He addressed Oliver directly. Mr. Morrison, your own messages reveal a deep disregard for your children and a calculated plan to financially exploit them. Your allegations against Ms. Morrison are not only unfounded, but contradicted by substantial evidence of your own abusive behavior. Oliver was red with anger and humiliation. Therefore, I not only deny your custody petition, but I also impose restrictions on your visits. You may only see your children in a supervised setting, and only if they consent to seeing you. The judge turned to Claire. Ms. Morrison, it is evident that you are a dedicated mother who made extraordinarily difficult choices to protect your children. Your full custody is maintained. And then came the final surprise. Furthermore, Mr. Morrison, your attempts to fraudulently obtain rights to the Nourish Kids Company, combined with evidence of falsifying phone records, will result in a referral to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution. Oliver stood up abruptly, his mask of civility finally dropping completely. This isn't over, Claire, he shouted across the courtroom. "You may have bought this, Judge, but Mr. Morrison," the judge roared. "One more word, and I will hold you in contempt of court." Margaret Williamson dragged Oliver out of the courtroom before he could cause further damage. Claire collapsed into John's arms, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. The battle had lasted 6 months and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was finally over. Ava ran to hug her mother. "It's over, Mom. It's finally over." But Claire knew it wasn't really over. Oliver had shown his true character, and she knew he would never forgive the public humiliation he had suffered. In the months following the court decision, Claire's life slowly returned to normal, or at least, to a new version of normal. Oliver was sentenced to 2 years of probation for attempted fraud and falsifying documents. He and Jessica moved to Arizona, apparently trying to start a new life away from the public humiliation they had suffered in Michigan. The children reacted to the judicial victory in different ways. Liam, now 9, didn't fully understand the legal proceedings, but felt the emotional relief that permeated the house. His meltdowns virtually ceased, and he began to show interest in activities he had never attempted before. Olivia, at 13, was relieved but also a little sad. "He's still my dad, she told Claire one night. "Even though he's bad, I wished he were different." Claire hugged her daughter, perfectly understanding the emotional ambivalence. "It's normal to feel that way, sweetheart. Loving someone doesn't mean accepting bad behavior." Ava, on the verge of graduating high school, seemed to have matured even more during the court process. "I'm proud of how our family fought together," she said. "And I'm proud of you, Mom, for never giving up on us." The company Nourish Kids continued to grow exponentially. The negative publicity Oliver had tried to generate ended up having the opposite effect. People identified with Claire's struggle as a single mother protecting her children, and sales increased by 40% in the year following the trial. Claire was invited to a congressional hearing on the rights of children with special needs. Her testimony about the importance of family support and adequate resources resulted in federal legislation allocating $500 million for research and support for families of autistic children. "You didn't just change your own life," John said one night, watching Claire review proposals for new therapy centers that would be funded by the new legislation. "You changed the lives of thousands of families you don't even know." "Sometimes I feel like it's still not enough," Claire replied. "There's still so much prejudice, so much lack of understanding. But you planted seeds that will grow for generations. Liam and your other children will grow up in a more understanding world because of what you did." Claire and John married in a small, intimate ceremony 2 years after the trial. The ceremony was held in the garden of their home in Michigan, with only the 5 children, a few close friends, and family present. Liam was the ring bearer, walking solemnly down the aisle with a proud smile. Jake and Sam, John's sons, served as groomsmen. Ava and Olivia were Claire's bridesmaids, wearing simple but elegant dresses they had chosen themselves. "You are not just a new family," the celebrant said. "You are a family that chose to be together, that fought to be together, that grew stronger through challenges." Claire looked around at her 5 children, 3 biological, 2 by marriage, all loved equally, and felt a profound gratitude for the journey that had brought her there. The years passed peacefully. Claire found the balance she had always sought between work and family. The company expanded internationally, but she structured her leadership so she could be present for her children's important moments. She watched Liam develop a surprising talent for music, his unique sensory needs allowing him to hear nuances others missed. She saw Olivia become a passionate advocate for animal rights, organizing protection campaigns at school. She watched Ava excel academically and get accepted to Harvard to study biomedicine. Jake, John's oldest son, overcame his own autism-related social difficulties and became a talented artist. Sam developed a passion for computers that led him to create assistive applications for children with special needs. "You see," John said one night, watching the 5 children work together on a school project, "family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, commitment, and unconditional love." Claire agreed, but a small part of her still carried a sadness about Oliver. Not romantic longing that had died a long time ago, but sadness for the man he could have been, for the father her children deserved, for the relationship that could have flourished if he had chosen love instead of selfishness. 8 years had passed since the trial when Ava, now 26 and about to graduate from medical school, made a request that completely surprised Claire. They were planning Ava's graduation party, an event Claire wanted to be special, a celebration not just of the medical degree, but of the incredible journey Ava had taken from a 12-year-old girl helping care for her siblings to becoming a future medical specialist in developmental disorders. "Mom," Ava said hesitantly during breakfast, "can I ask you something about the party?" "Of course, sweetie. Anything." Ava nervously stirred her coffee. "Would you be terribly upset if I wanted to invite Dad?" Claire felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. For 8 years, Oliver had maintained sporadic contact with the children, occasional birthday cards, Christmas presents sent through the mail, a few tense phone calls. He had never asked to see them in person, and the children had never expressed a desire to meet him. "Ava," Claire began carefully, "why do you want him to come?" "It's not that I want him to, exactly," Ava explained. "It's more that he's my father, you know? And graduating from medical school is one of the most important things in my life. I feel like it would be incomplete if he wasn't there." Claire felt a complex mix of emotions. Anger that Oliver didn't deserve to be present for the accomplishments he had tried to destroy. Fear that his presence would bring unnecessary drama. But mostly unconditional love for Ava and recognition that this was a decision her daughter needed to make. "Have you talked to Liam and Olivia about this?" "I have. Olivia said she doesn't mind if he comes, as long as you're okay with it." "Liam? Well, he doesn't remember much about Dad anyway, so for him it doesn't matter." Claire took a deep breath. "Ava, sweetheart, if that's what you want, then I'm okay with it. But are you sure? You remember what he was like, what he did?" "I remember everything, Mom. I remember the trial. I remember the horrible things he said about us. But I also remember he's my biological father, and maybe he's changed. Or maybe he hasn't. And I need to see that for myself to finally make peace with everything." Claire admired her daughter's emotional maturity. At 26, Ava had become a wise woman who understood that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but rather finding personal peace. "Then it's okay, but I won't reach out to him. If you want him to come, you'll have to invite him." "I know. And if he does anything to spoil the party or hurt you." "He won't be able to hurt me, Ava. Not anymore. But I appreciate your protection." That night, Claire told John about Ava's request. "How do you feel about it?" he asked, holding her hand. "Honestly, terrified, but also curious. 8 years is a long time. People can change. And if Ava needs this for her own closure, then I support it. You're an incredible woman. Did you know that? After everything he did, you can still be gracefully selfless." "It's not selflessness. It's maternal love. I would do anything for my children, including facing ghosts from the past." 3 days later, Ava called Claire, visibly shaken. "Mom, I talked to him." "How did it go?" He cried, Mom. He cried a lot. Said he misses us every day, that he regrets everything he did, that he knows he doesn't deserve forgiveness, but would like a chance to at least see us one more time." Claire felt something stir in her chest, not love or longing, but a basic human compassion for genuine pain. "Do you believe him?" "I don't know. But his voice, it sounded different. Broken. Humble. Nothing like the arrogant man I remember from the trial." "Where is he living now?" "Still in Arizona. He and Jessica divorced 3 years ago. He works at a mechanic shop, lives alone in a small apartment. He said he lost almost everything after the trial, that no military company wanted to hire him." Claire felt no satisfaction from this information, just a deep sadness for the cascade of consequences that poor choices had created. "Ava, are you sure you want this?" "I am." "Mom, can I ask you one more thing?" "Of course. Could you deliver the invitation to him in person?" Claire was silent for a long moment. "Why?" "Because I think you two need to see each other one last time. For closure. To finally put an end to it. So you both can completely move on." A week later, Claire was driving through the dusty streets of Phoenix, Arizona, looking for the address Ava had given her. She had flown there on a Thursday morning, planning to return the same day. John had offered to accompany her, but she felt it was something she needed to do alone. Oliver's apartment was in a modest complex, very different from the elegant home they had shared in Michigan. Claire parked and sat in the car for 10 minutes, trying to calm her nerves. She didn't know what to expect. The arrogant, cruel Oliver from the trial? The charming man she had fallen in love with decades ago? Or someone completely different, shaped by 8 years of consequences from his own choices? Finally, she got out of the car and walked to the door of apartment 2B. She took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened, and Claire barely recognized the man standing there. Oliver had aged at least 15 years and 8. His hair was almost completely gray, his face thin and marked by deep lines of stress. He wore faded jeans and a simple t-shirt, and there was a humility in his posture she had never seen before. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two strangers linked by a complicated history of love, betrayal, war, and forgiveness. "Claire," Oliver finally said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You came." "Ava asked me to deliver this personally," Claire said, extending the graduation invitation. Oliver took the envelope with trembling hands and opened it. When he read the invitation, tears began to stream down his face. "She really wants me to go. She wants you to have the choice to go, just as you should have always had the choice to be a present father." Oliver invited her in. The apartment was Spartan but clean, an old couch, a small TV, a kitchen table with 2 chairs. On the walls, there were photos of Ava, Olivia, and Liam at various ages, photos he had clearly printed from social media over the years. "You watch them grow up," Claire observed. "From a distance." "Always from a distance," Oliver admitted. "I saw Ava graduate from high school through photos on Facebook. I saw Olivia win an animal advocacy award on Instagram. I saw Liam play the piano in a video you posted." They sat in the small living room, a heavy silence between them. "Claire," Oliver finally said, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know I destroyed our family, that I hurt you and the children in unforgivable ways. But I need you to know, not a day goes by that I don't regret everything." Claire studied him carefully. "What happened to you, Oliver? How did you turn into that cruel person at the trial?" Oliver ran his hands over his face. "Pride, anger, fear of facing what I had done. When you kicked me out of the house, I couldn't accept that it was my fault. It was easier to blame you, to turn you into the villain of the story. And Jessica, she left me when she realized I wasn't the successful man she thought she was conquering. When the trial ended and I lost my military career, she realized she had bet on the wrong horse." Oliver stood up and walked to the window. "Do you know what the worst moment was? It wasn't losing the trial or losing Jessica or losing my career. It was watching Ava testify against me and realizing she was right about everything." Claire felt her throat tighten. "Oliver, no, let me finish. Please." He turned to her. "I turned the strongest woman I knew into a victim. I turned the most dedicated mother in the world into an enemy for my own children. And why? Because of pride. Because of selfishness. Because of the cowardice to admit I wasn't the hero of the story." Tears were now streaming freely down Oliver's face. "Claire, I know I can't undo what I did. I know you built a beautiful life without me, that the boys have John as a father figure, that you're happy. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. I'm just saying I'm sorry. Deeply, devastatingly, completely sorry." Claire felt her own tears begin to fall. They weren't tears of rekindled romantic love. They were tears of human compassion, of recognition for the tragedy of lives wasted by poor choices. "Oliver," she said gently, "everyone makes mistakes, some bigger than others. What matters is what we do next. I haven't done anything next. I just sank into self-pity and bitterness. Then maybe it's time to start doing something different." Oliver looked at her with cautious hope. "What do you mean?" "Ava wants you at her graduation. Olivia said she doesn't mind if you come. Liam, Well, Liam needs to meet you to decide if he wants a relationship with you. And you? Do you forgive me? Claire thought carefully before answering. Oliver, I can't erase what you did. I can't forget the pain you caused. But I can choose not to carry anger forever. I can choose to let our children have the opportunity to know you as you are now, not as you were then. What if they reject me? Then you will accept that decision and respect it. But if they choose to give you a chance, then you will honor that chance by being the father they always deserved. Oliver nodded, wiping his eyes. How can you be so gracious after everything? Because I learned that forgiveness isn't about you, Oliver. It's about me. It's about not letting your toxicity poison my future. It's about setting an example for my children that it's possible to be strong without being cruel, that it's possible to protect without being vengeful. They talked for 2 more hours. Claire told him about the children's lives, about their successes and challenges, about how Liam had blossomed, how Ava had become a leader, how Olivia had found her voice. Oliver listened to everything with a starved attention, absorbing every detail about the children he had lost due to his own choices. When Claire prepared to leave, Oliver walked her to the car. Claire, he said, regardless of what happens at the graduation, thank you for giving me this opportunity. You didn't owe me this. I'm not doing this for you, Oliver. I'm doing it for my children, because they deserve to have the choice to have a father or not. And what if they choose not to? Then you will accept that decision and find a way to live with it. But if they choose yes, you will spend the rest of your life being worthy of that second chance. As she drove back to the airport, Claire felt as if a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying had been removed from her shoulders. She had faced her past, offered grace where she could have offered revenge, and created space for future possibilities she couldn't yet imagine. Ava's graduation party was held in the ballroom of the most elegant hotel in Detroit. Claire had meticulously planned everything: pearl-colored flowers, soft lighting, a small orchestra, and tables arranged to allow for intimate conversations among the 100 guests. Ava was radiant in a navy blue dress that highlighted her natural intelligence and earned elegance. She had graduated summa cum laude, had been accepted into a pediatric residency program at Boston Children's Hospital, and had received a research grant to study autism spectrum disorders. Are you proud of me, Mom? Ava asked as she got ready. Ava, my dear, proud is too small a word for how I feel. You become everything I ever dreamed you could be, and so much more. Liam, now 17 and a talented young man mastering 3 musical instruments, looked handsome in a tuxedo that John had helped him choose. Olivia, at 21 and a veterinary student, had chosen a green dress that complemented her expressive eyes. John arrived with Jake and Sam, now young adults who had become true siblings to Claire's children. The expanded family gathered for photos before the party, a portrait of love that had been born from the ashes of destroyed relationships. Do you think he's really going to come? Olivia asked, referring to Oliver. He said he would, Ava replied. But if he doesn't, that's okay too. This party is about celebrating our family, and our family is all of you. Guests began to arrive: professors from medical school, longtime friends, colleagues from the Nourish Kids Company, and families who had been impacted by Claire's work with the autistic community. It was a celebration not only of Ava's achievement, but of the legacy of strength and perseverance Claire had built. At 8 o'clock, when the party was in full swing, Claire saw a familiar figure standing hesitantly at the ballroom entrance. Oliver had dressed for the occasion, a well-fitting dark suit, trimmed hair, shaved beard. But there was something profoundly nervous in his posture, as if he wasn't sure he deserved to be there. Claire walked up to him. You came, she said simply. Ava invited me. I couldn't disappoint her again. They stood for a moment, 2 ex-spouses who had shared 2 decades of life and were now essentially strangers, united only by the children they had raised. How do I look, Claire? Will I embarrass you all? You look fine, Oliver. Come on, the children are waiting. Claire guided him through the ballroom. Conversations paused as people recognized Oliver. Many of the guests knew the family's history, had followed the legal battle, had seen the newspaper headlines. But Claire held her head high, demonstrating through body language that Oliver was there by invitation and deserved to be treated with courtesy. Ava saw her father approaching and rushed to hug him. It was a hesitant hug at first, but it gradually became warmer. "Dad," she said, "thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Ava, you look beautiful. And I'm so proud of you. I know I have no right to be, but I am." Olivia approached more cautiously. She studied her father for a moment before giving him a brief but sincere hug. "Hi, Dad. Olivia, my little animal advocate. I saw your photos online rescuing those horses. You've become exactly the kind of person I always knew you would be." Liam was the most hesitant. At 17, he had grown up mostly without memories of his father, and his autistic nature made him process changes and reunions differently. Oliver knelt to meet his son's eye level. "Liam, I'm your dad. I know you don't remember me much, and that's okay. You don't have to hug me or pretend you know me. I just wanted you to know that I've always loved you, even when I was too stupid to show it the right way." Liam studied him with his characteristic intensity. "Are you the person who made Mom cry?" he asked with his typical honesty. Oliver felt as if he had been punched in the gut, but he answered truthfully. "Yes, Liam. I was that person. And I'm sorry for that." Liam nodded, processing the information. "Mom doesn't cry anymore. John makes her laugh." "I'm glad to hear that. Your mother deserves to laugh." To everyone's surprise, Liam extended his hand to Oliver. "You can stay for the party. But if you make Mom cry again, you'll have to leave." Oliver took his son's small hand, moved by Liam's direct and conditional grace. "It's a deal." The night proceeded with surprising elegance. Oliver stayed discreetly on the sidelines most of the time, watching his children interact with the guests, seeing them blossom into the brilliant young adults they had become. He watched Ava give an eloquent speech about gratitude, perseverance, and the power of family love. He saw Olivia play the violin with a passion she had clearly inherited from Claire. He observed Liam surprise everyone by joining the orchestra for an impromptu piano solo that left the room in silent admiration. "They're incredible," John said, approaching Oliver during a break in the music. Oliver turned to the man who had become a father to his children. "John, I should thank you. You don't need to thank me for anything. I love these kids as if they were my own. They are yours. In every way that matters. You were present when they needed a father. You loved them when I abandoned them." John was silent for a moment. "Oliver, can I tell you something?" "Of course. They still have room for you in their hearts." Claire made sure of that. Even after everything that happened, she never spoke ill of you in front of them. She never tried to completely erase you from their lives. Oliver looked across the ballroom at Claire, who was chatting animatedly with a group of doctors about autism research. "She is an exceptional woman. She is. And she raised exceptional children. You were lucky to have her, even if you weren't smart enough to value it at the time. John, would you mind if I tried to rebuild a relationship with the children?" Slowly, respectfully, John considered the question carefully. "That's not up to me, Oliver. It's up to them. And up to you to prove you've truly changed. But if they want it, I won't interfere. They deserve to have as many people who love them as possible." When it was time for the traditional father-daughter dance, Ava sought out Oliver. "Dad, would you like to dance with me?" Oliver was visibly moved. "Are you sure?" "John could. John already danced with me at my high school graduation. This is your dance." They walked onto the dance floor as the orchestra began to play The Way You Look Tonight. Oliver held Ava carefully, as if she were made of crystal. "Ava," he said as they danced, "I know I lost the right to be your father a long time ago. But I want you to know, you are my greatest source of pride. Watching you become this incredible woman, even without my positive presence, it's the only good thing I've ever done in my life. Dad, you didn't lose the right to be my father. You lost the privilege of being a present father. But if you've really changed, if you truly want to rebuild our relationship, I'm willing to try. Even after everything, especially after everything. Because Mom taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. And that everyone deserves a second chance if they are genuinely remorseful." When the music ended, Oliver kissed his daughter's forehead. I love you, Ava. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn your forgiveness. You don't need to earn my love, Dad. You just need to honor it. Later that night, as the party was winding down, Claire approached Oliver. How do you feel? She asked. Grateful, humbled, hopeful for the first time in years. Oliver paused. Claire, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you do this? Why did you give me this opportunity? I don't deserve it. Claire looked around the room. At Ava laughing with medical school friends, at Olivia helping Liam organize his sheet music, at John talking affectionately with Jake and Sam. Because I learned that carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Because our children deserve to have the choice to know you. And because forgiveness isn't about you deserving it or not. It's about me choosing to be free. What if I mess things up again? Then the consequences will be yours to face. But if you don't mess up, if you've truly changed, then our children gain something precious. A father who finally learned how to love unconditionally. Oliver nodded, understanding the responsibility being offered to him. I won't let you down, Claire. I won't let them down. Don't make promises to me, Oliver. Just be the man they deserve you to be. 5 years passed. Claire was sitting in the garden of her Michigan home on a sunny Saturday afternoon, watching a scene she never could have imagined years ago. Oliver was on the lawn, patiently teaching Liam how to change the car oil. At 22, Liam had become a surprisingly skilled young man with mechanics, a passion Oliver had helped nurture during his monthly visits over the past 5 years. Just like that, son, Oliver said gently. Do you feel the resistance? That means it's tight enough. Liam, now communicative and confident in a way that would have been unthinkable in his childhood, smiled at his father. Can I do the next one alone? Of course. I'm here if you need me. Olivia arrived from veterinary school for the weekend, bringing her boyfriend Mark to meet the family. At 26, she had become a specialist veterinarian in wildlife rehabilitation. Hi, Dad, she shouted, running to hug Oliver. My little animal doctor, Oliver replied, hugging her back. How are the orphan bears you're looking after? Growing fast. On your next visit, I can take you to the sanctuary. Ava arrived from Boston later that afternoon, now a developmental pediatrician who worked with autistic children. She had followed her mother's professional footsteps in a different yet complementary way. How's my favorite grandson? Oliver asked, picking up Ava's 2-year-old son. Oliver loves Grandpa, Ava laughed. She had named her son after her father, not the man he had been, but the man he had become. Claire watched all of this with a feeling of deep peace. The 5 years since Ava's graduation had been a journey of careful reconstruction and mutual growth. Oliver had moved back to Michigan 2 years ago, finding a job at a local mechanic shop. He lived in a modest apartment 20 minutes from Claire's house, close enough to be present, far enough to respect boundaries. He had never tried to reclaim a romantic role in Claire's life. They both understood that chapter was permanently closed. But he had become a dedicated grandfather, a present, though belated, father, and surprisingly, a source of support for Claire on matters related to the children. Penny for your thoughts? John said, sitting down beside her on the porch. Just marveling at how surprising life can be, Claire replied, leaning on her husband's shoulder. Do you regret giving him a second chance? Claire considered the question. No. The children gained a father. Oliver gained a chance at redemption. And I gained peace. The feeling that I did the right thing, even when it was the hardest thing. What if he had never truly changed? Then the children would have learned that lesson too. But he did change. Or at least, he found a better version of himself. John kissed the top of her head. You are an incredible woman, Claire Morrison Peterson. It took me a while to believe that. They were silent for a moment, watching the family gathered in the garden. Jake had arrived with his wife and young daughter. Sam was helping Liam with the car. Oliver was chatting animatedly with Mark about conservation projects. It was a complex family, built on ruins and rebuilt with love, forgiveness, and the determination that the children should not pay for the adults' failures. That evening, during the family dinner, Liam made an announcement. I want to work with cars like Dad, Oliver, he said. But special cars. For people like me. How so, dear? Claire asked. Cars adapted for people who process the world differently. Seats that help with tactile sensitivity. Sound systems that don't cause overload. Controls that make sense to autistic minds. Oliver looked at his son with pure admiration. Liam, that is a brilliant idea. Will you help me learn? It would be an honor. Claire felt tears well up. 20 years ago, Oliver had referred to Liam as the autistic child always screaming. Now he was proud to help his son use his neurodiversity as a strength, not a limitation. After dinner, as everyone prepared to leave, Ava approached Claire. Mom, can I talk to you for a minute? They walked out onto the porch. I just wanted to thank you, Ava said. For what, sweetheart? For teaching me that strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means rebuilding with more wisdom. For showing me that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to let the past poison the future. And for teaching me that family isn't perfect, but it is resilient. Claire hugged her daughter, her firstborn, who had become not only a remarkable woman, but a friend and confidant. You learned those lessons yourself, Ava. I just set the example. And what an example. Mom, you saved our family. You didn't just protect us from a toxic situation. You taught us how to love with healthy boundaries, how to forgive without being naive, how to be strong without being cruel. When everyone finally departed, Claire and John were left alone in the kitchen, clearing the dinner plates. Do you know what impresses me most about today? John said. What? Oliver didn't try to be the hero of the story. He simply tried to be useful, present, respectful. He accepted his role as a supporting figure in the children's lives. It took him time to understand that. But yes, he finally learned that being a father isn't about being the center of attention. It's about supporting your children so they can shine. Claire dried her hands and looked out the kitchen window. The same window where so many years ago, she used to stand in the morning, exhausted and alone, wondering how she would manage everything. Now, she saw a garden where 5 children had grown up safe and loved, where 2 marriages had peacefully coexisted, where forgiveness and rebuilding were possible even after devastating betrayals. John, she said softly. Yes. Thank you for showing me what true love is like, for teaching me that it's possible to trust again, for loving my children as if they were your own. Thank you for letting me be part of this extraordinary family, for showing me that strength and grace can coexist, and for raising 3 incredible human beings who made my life infinitely richer. They embraced in the quiet kitchen, 2 survivors of previous relationships who had found in their second chance something deeper and more mature than they had ever experienced in youth. Claire thought about the journey that had brought her there, the discovery of betrayal, months of silence and suffering, the courage to start over alone, the building of a business empire, the finding of true love, the brutal legal battle, and finally, the grace of allowing Oliver to find his way back into his children's lives. It hadn't been an easy journey. It had been filled with pain, doubt, sleepless nights, and impossible decisions. But it had been worth it, because Claire had learned that true strength doesn't come from never falling. It comes from always getting back up. That real love is not the one that never faces storms. It is the one that survives them and grows deeper. And that family is not about blood or legal contracts. It is about choice, commitment, and the daily decision to show up for each other, especially when it is hard. As she turned off the lights in the house that night, Claire smiled. Tomorrow would be another day of infinite possibilities, surrounded by people who loved her not despite her journey, but because of it. Claire's strength was not just in what she had survived. It was in what she had built from the ashes of what she had lost. And that strength would continue to reverberate through generations, teaching her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren that true love isn't perfect, but it is resilient, that families can break and rebuild stronger, and that forgiveness isn't weakness. It is the greatest act of power a person can choose.